All right, guys. So what I want to look at here is some examples of proof, a couple math examples, and these are going to be two-column proofs. Sorry, I just moved that. These are going to be two-column proofs, but you don't need to necessarily do that on your assignment. So basically, the two kind of proofs we have are two-column and paragraph. Two-column are a little more organized, a little more shorter, I guess. Paragraph is more like you kind of expressing your thoughts, still in an organized way though. So you can see here when we're doing a proof, we have a given. Okay, so that's like a piece of information that we know is true. Okay, and we have something we're trying to prove. So in this case, it says given L is parallel to M. Prove angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. Okay, so you can see here the first thing you always write is the given. That's always your first thing. So the statement is L is parallel to M. The reason is that was given. Okay, so where we go from there is, okay, we say, and we kind of think about this beforehand, like how do we get from L is parallel to M to angle 2 has to be congruent to angle 7. Okay, so when we were going over the vocab, we knew that angle 2 and angle 6 had to be congruent because corresponding angles are always congruent. Okay, so that's the second step. So now we know 2 is congruent to 6. We know that 6 and 7 have to be congruent because if you remember, vertical angles are always congruent. So those are two things that we learned that we know are true. Therefore, and the last statement should always be what you're trying to prove. Therefore, angle 2 has to be congruent to angle 7 because of what we call the transitive property, which basically means well, let me write this down here, because angle 2 is congruent to angle 6 and angle 6 is congruent to angle 7, that means we can basically replace this up there. Okay, now you don't have to know that transitive property, but I just wanted to show that to you. So another example here. It says triangle RST is isosceles with vertex angle R. Okay, so again, we always start with what's given. Okay. Now, S is not congruent to T, indirect proof assumption. This one we have to be careful with, and this is not something you're going to run into. But basically we can assume that because it doesn't say it's equilateral. Okay, so the next statement is RS is congruent to RT. That's the definition of an isosceles triangle, that the legs are congruent. Angle S is congruent to T because angles opposite of congruent sides are always congruent in a triangle. We know that. Okay. Now, number 5 says contradiction between statement 2 and statement 4. A pair of angles can't be congruent and non-congruent. So they're kind of going in a different direction here and saying that if we have a negation, if something doesn't work out, that means it can't be true. Okay, so in other words, if you would say, I always do my homework, and then one day you don't have your homework done, that means that statement's not true because you contradicted it. Okay, so for something to be true, it has to be true all of the time. For something to be false, it only has to be false once. So let's look at another example here. So what they're trying to prove here is that Spot is a mammal. Okay, now it says it's given that Spot is a Dalmatian, so we know that. Okay, Spot is a dog. And the reason for that is if he's a Dalmatian, then he's a dog. Maybe I shouldn't assume it's a he, but so number 3, Spot is a mammal. Because if something is a dog, then it's a mammal. So you can see our train of thought. We go from here and then to here. So we're justifying our reasons. We're not just saying things. Okay? So that's kind of a rundown, I guess. A little quick, but proof, just justify. Every step has to have a justification or a reason.